Hey guys, mark your calendars, October 16th. Better yet, subscribe, hit the subscribe buttons, and then a bell. My grandson actually taught me this today. If you're wondering why I've never said this, when you hit the subscribe button, a bell will pop up. And if you hit the bell and you personalize it to say, let me know every time this guy posts a video, your phone or your tablet, whatever, will ping and you'll know that I just posted a new video. So subscribe and hit the bell, and this way you don't miss this interview. It's going to be October 16th, and it's not going to be live like I did with Timothy Gordon and Devin Rose. I'm gonna try this one. We're gonna try to tape it, but I'll post it like I do. Like I make a video and I post it immediately after every time. There's no edit, so just, this is how we do it. But October 16th. But if you got questions, because usually I let you guys ask questions while I'm interviewing a guy. But if you have questions, just post them in the comments, and I'll do my best to write them down. This way I'm prepared for what I'm going to ask them, and because we're going to have like a 30-40 minute time frame, so I want to have everything ready. Or if you feel more comfortable emailing me, bluecollarcatholic@gmail.com, you can email your question. And like I said, I'm going to try my best to ask them all your questions. Oh, and who is it? It is 4-time Emmy award-winning journalist, former CBS News Anchor and television producer. You may know him as church militant Michael Voris. The topic of our conversation is going to be the election of 2020 and how important it is for us to get the Catholic vote. We need to get the Catholic vote out. And Michael is going to explain to us the importance of the Catholic vote and the importance of this election. Me and him both agree this is the most important election of our time. And I've always rolled my eyes when I've heard guys that agree with me on politics say that, because they say that every 4 years. But this is the first time I'm actually saying it. This is the most important election of our time, especially if you're a believer. If you are a Christian, whether you are a Protestant Christian or a Catholic Christian, this is the most important election of your time. And Michael Voris is going to help us understand why. But the thing that interests me most about Michael is his experience in the media. See, ever since I was a kid, and I've given you bits and pieces of my background. I was a partier. I was a bad kid. I was always in trouble as a kid. And but even though I was out there partying, I was with the Roughnecks. I was a thug, whatever you want to call me, hanging out in the hood, getting in trouble, doing everything I wasn't supposed to be doing. I had this really strong interest in politics. And back in the day, I don't know if you can still do it, but if you sign up for some kind of magazine club, they would send you like 20 different subscriptions. So I would do it all the time, and I wasn't a practicing Christian at the time, so I never paid, and I was only a teenager. But like at 13, 14 years old, I'm getting magazines, U.S. News, Time, everything. And I would just dig into the politics, go right to the politics, world politics, national politics. I just was always intrigued with politics. And the one thing I noticed was they were all biased towards the left, until I came across a magazine called National Review and started reading William F. Buckley and George Will. And I'm like, wow, this is what I believe. There's people that agree with me. I'm not crazy. And then as I got older and started watching television news, back in the day, it was ABC, CBS, where Michael Voris worked for many years, and NBC. That was it. And you had maybe one or two local affiliates and PBS. And they were all left-leaning. But if you didn't know the issues, if you didn't read and study the subjects, you were just force-fed what these liberal news reporters believed. And most people just accepted it. And it used to drive me crazy. And although I wasn't religious, a practicing Christian, I would go to a 700 Club because they would have a news segment and they would give you honest news, and I would get the other side. And then one day I was in the Navy. It was like 1988 or 1989. I'm sitting in my car, driving back from the gym, and I hear this guy talking, making sense. I was like, wow, is this a conservative on a radio, a media? Because back then, even on the radio, everybody was liberals. And it turns out it was Rush Limbaugh who was making his debut. And I was like, wow, we finally, as conservatives, people that think common sense, blue collar, common sense, conservatism, we got a voice on the radio. And then when Fox News came out, where, now the left attacks it as it's biased, but it really was the only fair and balanced news out there. From 9 to 5, it's just straight news. And then they got their conservative opinion guys, but they're conservative opinion guys. No other station does that. All the other stations, CNN, it's 24/7 liberal. They act like they're reporting the news, but they're giving you their liberal bias. And it's still happening today. It's happening more so today. And that's another thing I want to ask Michael. Does he think it's more so, or it's just people are more educated can notice? But to me, who's been an observer of this for years, now it's like blatant, in your face, biased. And I had a friend of mine I work with, actually. I just got him in at the job I'm at now. We worked years ago for Tropicana, delivering Tropicana juice and Gatorade together. And I would always talk politics, and he would roll his eyes. He's like, you think politics are in everything? And so I would back off a little bit. But I used to always say, you're a conservative, you just don't know it. But he said, I'm not either thing. I just look at each subject, each topic individually. But he got laid off due to COVID. Or no, actually before COVID, he got laid off. And he's sitting at home and watching the news, something he never did, but he was so bored. And he watched the Ukraine... the Ukraine hearings, how they were trying to impeach Trump. And then afterwards, he turns on CNN. He's like, what the heck were they watching? They didn't watch the same thing I watched. He said, Rob, I couldn't believe it. They reported the exact opposite of what really happened. I had to go to Fox News to get the whole thing. And I said, yeah, this is what we've been battling with for years. This is why I was always ranting to you for all these years. And now now I can't shut him up. I'm like, dude, let's talk about something else besides politics. He's just blown away with how the media ignores the truth. Like, for example, they try to impeach Trump over the Ukraine over a conversation that someone told them they overheard Trump saying something that was inappropriate. And they're trying to impeach the president of the United States over this. And yet, Joe Biden's son goes to Ukraine with no experience in energy, gets a job in energy, makes over $1.5 million, and then the Ukrainian prosecutors prosecuting his company for corruption, and Joe Biden on tape, you could see the tape, brags, if you don't fire that prosecutor, I'm not giving you the $1 billion we promised you. Quid pro quo, the whole thing they were saying that Trump was doing in Ukraine. Then, if you see, and the media ignores that. The media totally ignores it. They're not reporting this. Then if you see, for 2 years, the Mueller report trying to say that Trump colluded with Russia for 2 whole years, and they finally said, no, there was no collusion, there was nothing there, there's no there. It was nothing. And then just the day of the last debate, it comes out, the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, in charge of all the intelligence agencies, I think there's like 16 of them, CIA and all that, says they have proof, there's evidence that Hunter Biden received $3 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. So he got $3 million from Russia. And the media ignores it. And even the Fox News moderator wouldn't ask Hunter Biden that question. Instead, he's bugging Trump about taxes, not saying he did anything wrong, saying he was a smart business guy and hardly paid taxes, and saying, is that right? And no wonder Trump was getting frustrated. I'd be frustrated too. So all this media bias is affecting people's thinking on how they're going to vote. The only argument Trump's opponents has against him is he's racist, he's bigoted, he's misogynist. That's all they repeat. But that's what they said against Romney. That's what they said against McCain. That's what they said against Bush. That's what they said against Reagan. But when they're not running for president, they love these guys. It's a game they play. But if you don't understand the news is biased, you're just an innocent victim. So we're going to get someone from the inside who worked at CBS for years, and he was stellar. 4 Emmys. He was the best at the business. He was the best of the best. You win an Emmy for excellence in broadcasting. You got to know what you're doing. So that's what I'm excited about. He wants to talk about other things. I'm going to let him. We're going to take every opportunity to pick his brain. He has a head full of knowledge on these issues. And now I know some of you guys out there are familiar with him. And you might be curious why I would have him on my show, because we have different approaches. I don't make it a habit of calling out any clergy, and he does. But we have different backgrounds, similar yet different. So similar in that we were both baptized Catholic in the 60s. And then as in our teenage years, we kind of walked away from the faith. And I was never really into the church. You know, I was baptized and made communion in 2nd grade, but I never really remembered anything they taught me. And, you know, I lived a life of sin. And but he seemed to get catechized and understand what the church believed, yet still was tempted in sin. And even though it was different sin, different types of sin, we both knew we were sinners. You know, we had no doubts we were sinners, but we just loved our sins. So we got further and further, deeper and deeper. When I came back to God, I believed the Catholic Church was so corrupt and messed up that I didn't even think about going back to the Catholic Church. I became an evangelical. And when he came back to God, he knew that the Catholic Church was the church that Christ established. And he never gave it a thought to go to any other church. So when he came in and he seen the corruption and the abuse and the scandals, he was so, this is my opinion, you know, he may want to correct me, but from my opinion, from, you know, what I've watched of him, he was so incensed of these men destroying the church that he loved, that he felt led to speak out against it. And that's a big part of his ministry, calling out corrupt clergy in the Catholic Church. Now me, I was an evangelical, calling them out, saying this is why you shouldn't go there. This is why you should become a Protestant for 30 years. So then when I realized, studying the scriptures and studying church history, that Michael Voris was right. The Catholic Church is the church that Christ established. And once I realized that communion was more than symbolic, that it was actually the body and blood of Jesus Christ, I didn't care about any man in the church. When I came back to the Catholic Church, I didn't care about nothing except eating that Eucharist. I just wanted the body and blood of Christ. And I had no grand illusions that there were going to be these great priests and spectacular preachers. I mean, I've listened to some of the best preachers in Protestantism. I sat in Jonathan Cahn, the Jewish pastor from New Jersey. I sat in his congregation. I sat in David Wilkerson's congregation. I could go on and on. The name's a list of men I've heard preach, great preachers. But I wasn't there for the preaching. I was there for Christ, for the body and blood of Christ. I wanted to be in the church that Christ established. So I didn't care about anything else that was going on in the clergy. Now, for the record, I was blessed. My priests all preached the truth. We had 3 different priests since I've been there, and they've all preached the truth. And they actually are good preachers. They're gifted speakers. So maybe, you know, maybe if I had a different experience when I came back, I might have changed my mind. But so my ministry was to bring Protestants back to say, listen, this is what's going on. The Catholic Church is the church that Christ established, and I focused on that. And when I seen a bishop or a priest do something good, I lifted him up, and you know, and I was like a cheerleader. And sometimes these guys didn't always do everything right, but I didn't choose to point that out. But that's just my style. Michael Voris' style is a little different, just like there's coaches, you know. Bill Parcells from the New York Giants, I loved him. You know, I was a Giant fan growing up. And, man, he would dog his players, not because he hated his players, but because he loved them. But then you see, his name escapes me, but the coach of the Saints, the New Orleans Saints, he's a positive coach. He's always positive no matter what they do. He's like, okay, we'll do better next time. He's slapping them on the butt. Come on, guys, we got to win. That's more my style. But where me and Michael Voris agree is that the Catholic Church is the church that Christ established, and that we love the church. We love the church's doctrine, and we want to bring Catholics to a deeper understanding of Jesus Christ. And at this time in history, right now, our country needs solid Catholic Christians to go out and vote and make a difference. So again, subscribe, notify, hit the bell, put on your calendar, October 16th, Michael Voris. Thank you. Stay Catholic.